All right. Well, I decided to make this video. Um, this isn't the right way to paint a tractor, but it does work, and there are reasons I decided to go ahead and do it this way. I have a hard time. I've always had a hard time with projects and such because you want to do it 100%. You want it to be right, but the reality is, for me, if I always try to pursue that because I don't have the time and money to accomplish that. So I've discovered that just simply doing stuff, even if it is 50% of what it ought to be, it still works. So in this case, is a tractor I use frequently, and if you look at some of the other videos, you can kind of see, it wasn't in, well, I mean, the paint was pretty rough, and it had been worn over the year, and I replaced a few things, but I mean, it looked like an old tractor, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't know, just wanted to feel better about it, and I wanted to, paint it. And I've been kind of wrestling over whether to buy another tractor, larger tractor, but this thing really does do all I want it to do, and it's not like we farm a lot of acres or anything. So this is more than it performs great. It's great fuel efficiency, and so I decided, well, if I'm going to keep it, at least for the meantime, I'm just going to go ahead and put some real money into it because that's kind of the break I'm at right now. So I decided, I was like, well, uh, when looking at this, decided to go ahead and paint it. But what led up to that was I'd had a motor issue. I thought it was a motor issue anyhow. And after, I thought it was something that was wrong with the head. I thought I had a head gasket leak, and turned out that wasn't the case. And but I'd already taken the tin off, and I was like, well, while I have the tin off, I'm going to go ahead and repaint the tin. Well, the tin looked good enough, because I did sand it down, and went through quite a few coats of primer and everything, and I repainted the dash. All that stuff was worn. It looked so good, I realized that it looked good enough that I knew I was going to have to paint the rest of it, otherwise it was going to look ridiculous. So that's what I did. For paint guns, now, I paint stuff. I've gotten to the point now, as I was mentioning, that, I just paint stuff. And, I don't waste time. It'd be nice to do things the right way all the time, but I just don't have the time for it or the money. So what I ended up using, I used Rustoleum. They have their farm enamel, so that's what I used. I used their primer gray, so that way I could see, see places I hadn't hit when I did primer it. When I applied the red, and I used their International Harvester red. Uh, the shade, it's pretty close. It's not exact, but it's not bad. And who knows what it'll look like once it fully sets up. But I think it's all right. Um, and I used, on the tin, I've got two. Well, there's one main paint gun I use for the most part, and that's a Finish Line, and they're good guns, good quality, and I paid a lot for it, and it works great, But it's almost hard to make a run with it, but it doesn't paint a lot of volume really quickly. So, when I was doing this, man, it was just taking forever. Then I remembered I had a pressure pot. This is one of those Harbor Freight pressure pots, and I broke it out, and it made all the difference in the world. Particularly on the rest of the tractor. The tin I took a little bit of time with, but the rest of this, I'll show you here in a moment. I did not. I flaked off what paint was available. I actually welded up. There were some spots on the frame that I repaired. I welded it up because somebody had hogged it out at some point to attach something to the tractor, and so I welded those up and then filled it in, with some body filler. I mean, there wasn't much to fill in. I did a reasonable job on it. And anyway, so I hit it with I think 2 coats of primer, 2 good heavy coats of primer, solid coats of primer, and then 3 coats of color. And it, I'm pretty content with it. It's got bugs in it because I painted it outside. Not much, but there is imperfections. I painted over old paint, so you can definitely see that. But I'm all right with it. It doesn't look bad, and I feel I'm glad I did it. So, it's not the right way to paint a tractor, but but it, it's all right. And if I don't like it here in a few years, I'll paint it again. You know, I would say supplies, I'm under $300, probably closer to $200. Now, if you had to buy, paint guns, obviously it's going to run your total up. But I highly recommend that a pressure pot. I don't know what it is at Harbor Freight, brand new. I bought it used for 25 bucks. I mean, it was new in box, but I mean, I didn't buy it from Harbor Freight. It couldn't be more than $60 at Harbor Freight. Now that thing creates runs like crazy. So, I wouldn't use it on 10 per se, unless you're just really fast. I mean, you could use it. You just have to stay back a little bit further. Um, but for delivering paint, because I didn't take this thing all apart, as you can see. I masked it off, and that's what all the trash is there at the bottom. Me pulling all the masking off. I masked off absolutely as much as I could, thanks to the help of my wife. And I hate what a tractor looks like when somebody just paints over the whole thing, and you have a bunch of overspray, and all the hoses, they start cracking, and it just looks terrible. So I taped off all the rubber hoses I could get to, and other things I didn't want painted, because they're like brass fittings and stuff like that. I actually taped them off. That way, I don't know. It just looks better to me. That's my preference. But anyway, so I went through it, and shot it pretty quickly. That pressure pot, something I couldn't do with the finish line was invert it. It's a gravity feed, and so the pressure pot allowed me to get in tight spots, because it's just hose that connect to the gun, and so I was able to invert it and paint it inside, because it's just the gun. I could get it in a lot tighter without the paint pot on top of it, and made just a world of difference. Not to mention just the volume it delivered. I was able to put down a lot of paint really fast, and where I didn't disassemble it, there were spots it just couldn't reach, and with the finish line, I was just holding it there. And eventually it would fog enough. You would deliver some paint, but man, that pressure pot, man, is all the difference in the world. But another reason why I chose to use Rustoleum is, like as I mentioned, I use this all the time, so it gets scraped up, it gets dented, because I'm using it in the field. I use it for brush hogging, use it for hay, so it's going to get scuffed up. And with the Rustoleum, I can get a reasonable match. I'm sure from gallon to gallon, like with almost any paint, you may end up with little differences, but because I know I'm going to have to respray it, maybe even every year. It just depends. It's not so bad anymore, but if I go in to clear someplace out, it's going to get beat up a little bit. That's what tractors are for. But I can just respray it, and it'll look all right. And then, like I said, few years down the road, if I want to, I can strip it all down and do it the right way, but I don't have time for that right now. So I'm going to go up a little bit closer. You can kind of see some of the things I'm talking about, but overall, not too disappointed with it. I think it looks all right. All right, and then so in here, helicopter there. I'd repaired over here on the frame, welded that up, and ground it down as best I could. And I actually sanded some of this, trying to clean it up a little bit. But as you can see, there's still old layers of paint on there, and I just went over the top of it. There's still some flakes on there, and they'll probably pop off as time goes on. But it just looks better. I feel better about it. And on some of the forums I've been on in the past, like Red Power, or actually I'm still on there, and yesterday's tractors, there have been more than a couple people that recommended just spraying a layer of spray paint on your tractor, on a project, just to make yourself feel better about it. Just feel like you're doing something, get excited about it if you get bored, like if you start losing your focus. And I've done that before, and it really does work. It just, I don't know, just gives you some energy for the project. So if you're kind of like, if you're there, and I know, everybody wants to do a good job, but even if you are a perfectionist, sometimes just getting this on, getting a coat of paint, just, I don't know, just makes it look better, make you feel a little better about it. It gives you hope for where you're going. Kind of gives you an idea of where you're going. So, I'd recommend it. Like I said, I am pretty picky myself, and I understand about doing things the right way, but You know, like I said, you can see it's painted over, but you know, try to do a good job with masking stuff off. And yeah, if it lasts, now I guess you know, obviously different if you're doing like a professional restoration. Your only intent is to put it in a collection. Okay, well then it's not going to do you much good you know, to do what I'm doing. But if you know if it's something you use, you want to take to shows, and who knows how, you know, if it take another year or 2 years before you can get around to getting it painted properly, and then that way you can take it out to a show, and meanwhile it's just sitting in your garage or your barn. Well, this is I recommend this. You know, like I said, under $300, probably closer to $200, unless you needed to buy, you know, your own guns and air compressor, and obviously it's going to drive the price up. But like I said, I shot this outside, and you know, if your tractor sits outside all the time, you're going to have to repaint it more often. You know, it's going to receive a lot more damage. You know, I know with red, one of the issues with red is that the best pigments for it are expensive. So it's an expensive paint, generally speaking. And what happens, like I'm sure probably Rustoleum and a lot of others, you know, they use alternative pigments that don't last as long. And so sometimes they'll orange out or pink out after a while if you are dealing with Farmalls. I would presume, you know, I know there's other tractors that, you know, use red, Massey Ferguson and such, but I don't know if they experience it as bad. But anyway, you know, it's all right, and it looks good to me. It looks good enough. I'm not completely content. There's a lot of things I wish I could do, but you know, for the meantime, it's all right. And you know, from 10 feet away, the thing looks spectacular. So, and you know, you're going to be the one who notices all the imperfections and stuff. Most people are going to, you know, look at it and say, "Oh, that looks nice," you know, and because I've already had those comments, people, you know, friends coming by, like, "Wow, that thing looks really nice." I'm like, "Well, don't look too close." But so you know, for you know, even though you'll hear a lot of people, you know, "Oh, well, if you're going to go through all the trouble, you know, buy Omni." Well, I agree. You know, PPG Omni, fantastic paint. But you know, unless you have the cash to lay down, which I don't right now, you know, I was going to use Iron Guard, but it's an hour away, and you know, when I do touch up, I just want to have it handy and be able to go reshoot it. And I've used Iron Guard on plenty of stuff, and I really do like Iron Guard. But you know, for this, man, I just wanted to get it done. And I would still be trying to do it if I needed to go buy more Iron Guard every time I ran out. But which, you know, okay, great, buy a bunch, but you know, it doesn't work quite like that. But anyhow, I recommend it. You know, it's not the best way to do things, but it does get it done. And you know, I guess we'll see. I'll do a follow-up video maybe a year and see how the paint's doing. All right, you guys take care.